Good morning, Chargers. Today what we are going to do is review proportional relationships by looking at graphs and finding their unit rates. So if we look at our graph first thing, besides you should be writing on your Cornell notes, find a unit rate from a graph, write that on the left side. And then let's look at our graph. It says money earned from babysitting. So my x-axis is time spent babysitting and my y-axis is the amount that I earned. What is our first thing that we're being asked? Describe the relationship depicted by the graph. When you are asked this question, I want you to describe this relationship in a very specific way. I would like you to say, this graph depicts a proportional relationship showing the time spent and the total money earned. Okay? Why would we say proportional relationship? We know that this is proportional because it starts at 0, 0, or the origin, and then it's a straight line. So it's a very consistent relationship. It is a proportional ratio. Next, what is the unit rate represented by the graph? We know that unit rate is amount per one. Amount per one. And then if we're looking at a graph, our unit rate is always where x is 1 and y is our unit rate. So here, I see that x is 1. And where x is 1, my y is $10. So what that really means is that in for $10, I have $10 for every 1 hour, also known as $10 per hour. So the amount that you get paid. What does the point 440 represent on my graph? So what we're going to practice today also is we are going to find that point and draw lines from our x and our y because we've had some trouble with picking very specific points. So if I have the point 4, 40, what that's really saying is that in 4 hours, I make $40. I can do the same thing with any other point on this graph. I can pick this one right here. That says that in 6 hours, I make $60. Okay? Which of course makes sense because I have 10 times the amount of dollars than I do hours. So if I have 6 hours, 6 times 10 will be 60. If I have 9 hours, 9 times 10 will be 90, the amount of money I will make. Very good. Let's move on to our next example. Let's look at our graph here. We have the amount of jam jarred. So on our bottom, our x-axis, again, I'm going to write x. On our x-axis, we have the number of days. And on our y-axis, we have the amount of jam made as measured in liters. So, what is our first question? Describe the relationship the graph depicts. This is the same exact thing as what we had on the last slide. I would have you write a sentence that says, this graph depicts a proportional relationship between the number of days and jam made. That's all we need to do. Oh, and again, we know it's proportional because it starts at 0, 0, and it's a straight line. Next, what is the unit rate? Again, the unit rate is always the amount per one. The amount per one. So I could find that by looking at where my x is 1. But this isn't a very clear point. And again, when we find points on this graph, we are going to dot it and draw lines from our x and our y. So while this isn't a very clear point, I think this one is. It falls exactly in the middle. Makes it very clear. And then let's look for other ones. I see a clear point here. And I see one more up here. So in order to find the unit rate, I'm going to have to simplify down. So I have 3 liters of jam for every 2 days. How am I going to get my 2 days to become 1, to be amount per 1? I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides. So 2 over 2 is going to equal 1 day. for every 3 over 2 jam. 3 over 2 would become 1 1/2 jam, or 1.5. For now, I'm just going to put 1 1/2 jam. 1 1/2 jam for every 1 day. So my unit rate is 1 1/2 jam per day. Very good. What does the point 23 represent on the graph? Well, we really already did this, but let's break it down one more time. If I find 2 and 3, 2 comma 3, that really means that in 2 days, I can make 3 liters of jam. See how all I really did was find my number and describe it using my units? So let's try it again. If I did 0.4 comma 6, that means in 4 days, I can make 6 liters of jam. Or let's try our 0.6 comma 9. 6 on my x-axis, comma 9. What that means is that in 6 days, I can make 9 liters of jam. So because this is a proportional relationship, it's very clear that the things are growing at a constant rate. Okay. Our last question really relates back to what we did on question number 2. What point represents the unit rate? We know that our unit rate is always where x is 1. So we already know that our point will be 1 comma something. And since when we represent our unit rate in a graph, it's 1 comma unit rate, and our unit rate was 1 1/2, we would put 1 comma 1 1/2. That's also easy to see if we looked at this point right here. I know it's not very, very clear because it's not exactly on the cross, but this looks like 1 1/2. It looks like it falls right in the middle there. So that's all we need to do today. We're talking about proportional relationships, graphing them, how to find our unit rate. This is all review, and y'all are going to do great. Shut your computer and raise your hand for practice.